Just to give you some idea of what could be accomplished with this money and what demands we could be pushing for. Direct rent relief payments for working families who are drowning in back rent, right? Massive investment in new public housing and improving existing public housing, right? Not a fund for for-profit developers. New and existing public housing should be from construction to everyday maintenance under the democratic control of renters and homeowners who live in the properties they manage. Fare-free WRTA, right? That was a demand that was won in early 2020 by a one-day strike by bus drivers for rear door boarding, right? This money could be used not just to make fare-free permanent past the end of the pandemic, but to improve and expand WRTA. That would go a long way towards making the city livable for people who don't have cars. More money to our schools for our overworked and underpaid public school teachers. Broadband access, right? Something better than Spectrum, which costs way too much money for nothing. Healthcare, right? Building and expanding new health clinics to actually reach people and give them healthcare access. They're pretending that the pandemic is basically over. Things are going back to normal. The economy is doing great, and this money is just a little bit of a kickstart to help us on our way. But the economy doesn't run on billionaires and the stock market, right? It runs on working people. And the reason that corporate profits are doing so well right now is because we're all doing so badly. The Supreme Court ended the evictions moratorium. Over 3 million people now face eviction. Last October, 54 million Americans were without consistent access to food, so-called food insecure. Tens of millions of Americans don't have health insurance, and because of that, have virtually no health care access during one of the worst public health crises in a century. Both parties have been standing in the way of universal health care since Bill Clinton, or longer. Schools switched to remote learning in a country where 157 million Americans are without broadband access. Right now more than 7.5 million adults can't go back to work because they have to care for their children during this pandemic. A report in January found that workers lost a combined $3.7 trillion in earnings during the pandemic. And an Oxfam report published the same day found that billionaires made $3.9 trillion over the same period, right? That's not a coincidence. Corporate America made a fortune out of our suffering, yet the total amount of ARPA funds being spent on cities in total is only $65 billion, right? Less than 2% of what workers lost in the last year and a half. Let's not think of this as 146 million that's belongs to the government. It belongs to the city. It's a bit of extra money or a gift that they're giving us. No, this is the first very tiny payment of the trillions of dollars that we are owed. Right? This is our money. We made it. We need it. We should decide how to spend it. But according to the city, we don't get to decide. Right? That's up to the city manager, Ed Augustus Jr. Like many cities, Worcester has a weak city council, a powerless, basically ceremonial mayor, and an all-powerful, unelected, unaccountable city manager. He essentially acts as like the CEO of the city. Right? His personal plan says the community should only get a say in how 10 million, less than 10% of the funds, is spent. This is our chance to fight here in the city, not just for a different division of the 146 million, but long-term improvements that change the tide and put this city to work for the people who do the work, not for developers and big business. That needs to start with making it out to these meetings and saying loud and clear to everyone in attendance that this process is unfair and we demand a democratic allocation of funds. If we don't want this money lining the pockets of politicians and corporate executives, if we want to see some real progress be made in this city, we need to be that opposition, right? We can win this. We've won before and we can do it again. And it starts with everyone here today.